In this video, we'll try to understand what are action filters in MVC, in what scenarios we should use action filter, and how to code an action filter in MVC. Now, action filters help you to perform logic while the MVC action is executing or after an MVC action is executed. So sometimes, what you would like to do is, before action executes, you would like to execute some logic, and after the action executes, you would like to execute some logic. So in those kind of scenarios, we use action filter. So for example, while the action is executing, you would like to do some validation check, and then you would like to decide that, okay, should I cancel the action or should the action be allowed to be executed ahead, right? Or sometimes, after the action is executed, you would like to go and log some information saying that, okay, the action is executed or it took this much time, etc., right? So in other words, whenever you want to do pre-processing and post-processing logic, you will use action filter. Now there are two ways by which we can create an action filter. One is, we can create an inline action filter, or second is we can create an action filter attribute. So what we'll do is, let's go ahead and see a simple example of how to create an inline action filter, and then we will see how to go and create action filter attribute. So in order to understand the action filters, let's go ahead and demonstrate it. So I have selected here ASP.NET MVC4 template. You can see I am creating a new project. I have selected the web section, and in the web section I have selected ASP.NET MVC4. Now whatever steps I'm demonstrating here will remain true for MVC2 and MVC3 as well. Okay, so I'm going to go and select this MVC4 web application template. I have given a name here saying MVC action sample. So let me just click OK. Let's go and select a clean template. So let's select this empty template here, and the view engine is ASPX, and let's say OK. So there we have our basic application of MVC. So I will go and first add a very simple controller here. So I'll just go and add a controller here saying sample filter. Okay, sample action filter, big name. And in this sample action filter, let's go ahead and create a simple view here called as, let's say, index view. So you can see that we have this simple action here called as index, right? So we'll just go and create a very simple view here saying index view. In this index view, I'll just put a simple text here saying, hello, this is demo of action filters, right? Now what we'd like to do is, we would like to go and put some pre-processing and post-processing logic by using action filters for this index action. So, when this index action is invoked, right, we would like to go and probably, write some text or something. We'd like to go and make some log entry into a file saying that, okay, the action has started and the action has ended. Okay. So in order to put those pre-processing logic, the first thing what we need to do is we need to actually go and implement the action filter interface. Now, if you go and implement this interface, right, so I'm going to go and right click and implement the interface. Now you can see that we have two events here. One is on action executed, and the other one is on action executing. So if you want to put a pre-processing logic, that logic will go here. So here's where we can go and put the pre-processing logic. And if you want to go and put a post-processing logic, then it will go over here. Okay, so this is for post-processing logic. So in simple words, before the index fires, right, before this index action fires, this on action executing event will fire. And after the index action has completed, the on action executed event will fire, right? Now what we'll do is, let's go ahead and just put some simple trace information into a file. So what I'll do is I'm going to go and import system.diagnostic namespace. So I'll just say a system.diagnostic. And I will go and write some trace information saying that, okay, trace.writeLine action is executing, right? And here I'll say trace.writeLine action has executed. Probably we would like to just go and put a date and time over here so that we can know when this event fired. So date and time. So action has executed at this time, and here also action is executing at this time. Great. Now let me just go and build this. right? So build succeeded. Nice. Now we have written your trace.writeLine, but we also need to define where this trace information will be saved, right? Should it be saved to a file or event viewer, right? So for that we need to go and define more details about it in the web.config file. So here we have to go and define the system.diagnostic details. So what I'll do here is I'll say here, okay, system.diagnostics. So I would like to go and send these details to a file. Probably we would like to go and send that trace information to a C drive, and in the C drive we'll probably create a file saying log.txt. So for that, we need to go and define a listener. So I'm going to go and copy paste this code here which I have. So you can see I have defined a listener here, and I'm saying that in the listeners that please go and use the text writer trace listener and write the log information to C drive in log.txt file, right? And also we need to go and say that automatically flush the information. So for that we need to go and define the trace tag here, and we are saying that, okay, trace auto flush equal to true. In other words, as soon as the trace information is written, just flush out the information in this log.txt file here. Okay. Okay, we also need to go and enter trace here. So very quickly /trace. All right. So now that we have defined our trace details, now what should happen is that the time I go and invoke this index action, it should go and write this trace information to this C drive file here in the log.txt, right? So let me just go and run this application. So I'm going to go and do a control F5. So their application is running, but we need to go and invoke the appropriate controller and action. So currently our controller name is sample action filter, and we need to go and invoke this index action. So let me just go and run this. So you can see that he has displayed the view here. Now let's go to our C drive. So let's go to our C drive, and in our C drive we should find log.txt. You can see that we have a file here called as log.txt, and if you open this, you can see here he has recorded the action executing event and also the action executed event. So if I go and run this again, let's say if I go and do a refresh here, and if I open this file again, I will find one more entry of this action executing and the action executed event. So this was a simple demonstration, how we can go and use action filters, on controller. Now this implementation is fine, but there is a slight problem with this implementation. Now whatever code I have written in this on action executed and on action executing event, right, I cannot reuse this logic in some other controller. So currently whatever logic I have written can be only used within this controller, that is sample action filter controller. But let's say if I go ahead and I create some other controller like home controller or some other controller, right, I cannot reuse this logic. So for those kind of scenarios, we need to convert this logic into a action attribute, action filter attribute, right? So in order to implement an action filter attribute, what we can do is we can create a complete new class here saying public class, let's say my action filter. And the next step, what we need to do is we need to inherit from the action filter attribute class and implement the action filter interface, right? So let's go ahead and implement this interface. And what I'll do is I'll just copy paste, the previous code over here. So this on action executed code will go over here. The on action executing will go over here. And I will remove this code from the controller. So I'm going to go and delete this, and also delete this interface, right? So now you can see the code is completely moved from the controller to a separate class called as my action filter, right? Now if I wish, I can take this my action filter and apply it to any controller I want. So when you create an action filter attribute, right, you can reuse it across controllers. So let me just go and build this. So there it is. Now if you want to use this my action filter over this controller here, what we need to do is we need to just go and say here my action filter. So you can see now I'm able to decorate my controller using this my action filter which I've created. So if I now go and run this application, let me just quickly go and build it, and I'll go and delete this log.txt file here to just see that if really this is working or not. So there I am running my application again, /sample action filter /index. So there our application has ran, and you can see now he has created a fresh log.txt file here, and if I open it, you can see that he has fired the action executing and the action executed event. So there are two ways of creating action filter. One is the inline action filter where the logic resides inside the same controller, and second is we can go ahead and create a separate filter altogether, a separate attribute altogether, and then we can reuse that attribute on different controllers. Now this implementation is good, but when I look at the log.txt file, right, I don't find too much information here. So it is just telling me, okay, some action is executed, but which action is executed, what is the name of the action, nothing is mentioned in this log.txt file, right? So if you want to go and log the method names or the action names, right, you can use this filter context over here. So in this filter context we have action descriptor. So we can say here, okay, this action name was executed at this time. In the same way I can say even over here, this action is executing at this time. So with this I can know that if the index action is executing or some other action is executing. What I can also do is I can just go and copy paste this action here. Let me go and create one more action here saying, let's say my index. Okay, so now if I run this index, it will show me that index was executed at this time. If I run my index, it will tell me that my index was executed at this time. Okay, so let me do a control F5 here and sample index. So if I run this, and if I now go to my log.txt file, it is now saying me that, okay, the index action has been executing at this time. Now if I go back again here and if I say my index, okay, so this will just say here that return the view as index. Okay, right. So now if I go and execute my index action, and now if I go again to my log.txt file, it is now telling me that, okay, my index has executed. So by using the filter context, right, you can actually know that what is the action, what has been executed at that time. Now when we started this tutorial, I said that we can also cancel the execution, right? So in case when this on action executing event is happening and you would like to go and cancel the execution, what you can do is you can go and write here filter context dot result, and I can say here please redirect to, let's say, questpond.com. Okay, so now what will happen here is basically this on action executing event will happen. It will redirect to questpond.com, and the on action executed and the action will not fire. So if I go and build this now very quickly, and if I run this application, so only the on action executing event will fire, but the on action executed and the action will not fire. So if I press enter, you can see now it has redirected to questpond.com, right? And if I go to the log.txt file, you can see that only the executing event has fired, but the executed event has not fired. So if you want to go and cancel the execution, you can use this filter context.result, and then you can give an object of new redirect result to this result property over here. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. In this video we were trying to understand what exactly are action filters, when to use them, and how to code action filter. Thank you so much.